I'd like to call to order a public hearing on local law D, 2018, local law to amend local law. Anyone wishing to speak on that issue? Hearing none, motion to close. Hearing. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, regular meeting. Regular meeting, Wednesday, June meeting of the Otsego Board. Roll call of members.
Frazier.
Here.
Farwell. Here. Clark. Here. Stammel.
Here.
Kennedy. Here. Overacker.
Here.
Bliss.
Here.
Marietta.
Here.
McCarty.
Here.
Wilbur.
Here.
Koenig.
Here.
Martini. Here. Lappin.
Here.
Shannon.
Here.
Please rise as you're able. Ms. Wick. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Privilege of the floor. Would like to speak?
Turning around, looking at me. Russell Aarons, 180 County Highway 26. Problem still not resolved. Started a few years ago. Obviously, there was a lot of confusion about ethics. And I'm reading here in the paper, everything that we see usually comes from the newspaper, and our county attorney readily admits that it's a confusing issue. Well, when you're confused about something, then don't take action on it. So I'd ask you, the board, think about what happened here. Didn't need to happen, not at all. This last month I attended a public auction over in Schoharie County, properties. 5 years before they took residential properties. Bill Cherry ran the auction himself. That means that all the money that went in, the bid, is the purchase price. It benefits both the buyer and, of course, the county. The county gets more money that way. Anything that was being disputed was pulled off. So they advertised 39 properties. I believe they sold 33. Anything with litigation was set aside. Nobody at that auction was screaming, crying, "You're taking my property." None of the above. Now, Maria's property was sold for an unfair price. And the reason being is that there was a lot of ruckus at that auction. It was very hard for her to maintain her sanity during that moment. It was all brought on by the desire of this county to grab a couple dollars from a widow. Now, this property was vacant land when they bought it, and they owned it for 20 years. They put a house on it that cost them $170,000. They got nothing back out of that, nothing. However, they added to the value of Otsego County. They added to the tax base in Otsego County. You're thinking about it, I've done that myself. I've bought property, have developed it, cleared it, worked hard, and then you pay the tax on it. And that benefits the county, and that's really what we do need. The property next to Maria's got sold this last fall. Amish bought it. They paid over $1,000 an acre. She had 74 acres. There alone was the selling price for the county. Now, was that fair and reasonable? And was it a fair and reasonable auction that there was only one person that would bid? In fact, the Amish that bought the property next door were at the auction when Maria's home was sold. They came up to Maria and said, "Don't worry, we would never buy your home under those circumstances." Honorable people. Now, I expect this board to do the honorable thing. And that's going to be to make it right with Maria Jello. The other situation is Bob Force, and that hasn't gone away either. Bob Force, Save the Force Farm. Bob has not given up in this. 30 years, ownership of a property. You put all this work in the infrastructure, you build up the tax base. You're not even owner-occupied, so you're paying the full shot. You're paying school taxes. You don't have any children that ever went to that school. And this is a situation. We in Otsego County rely on outside money coming here, whether it's in tourist dollars or if it's from the real estate that gets sold. And there was a time that people used to come from downstate in Jersey and whatever and want to come up here. What you've done and proven yourself to do with Maria Jello, and in the case of Kenna Jello, a deceased Vietnam veteran that died from Agent Orange is despicable and disgraceful. Your ethics board is a joke. Look no further than Sullivan County. It's online. 5 people on the ethics board. And you just don't appoint your friend, you know, somebody that you socialize with that's going to give you the answer that you want. Jack Henson was put on this board, the ethics board, he didn't even know he was on it. So, you know, you really need to go back and fix the problem that you created before you can go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Maria?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Jello. I have my property taken at a land auction. And the thing about Jack Henson was, perhaps he was joking when Russell said, I hear you're on the ethics board. He said, I am? I didn't know that. Well, you know how military men are, always undercover, trying to, I don't know. But in any event, Jack Henson retired. So we don't have a county ethics board, which really is the issue here. Sullivan County has one that went from 3 to 5 people. Mrs. Gacoma even stated it's complicated. It takes a lot of work. The Association of Counties can't even assist us. Well, why don't you call Sullivan County, Erie County? It works for them. We have no ethics board. You want us to sign off on an ethics policy that we don't even understand what we're signing. I know I'm repeating myself, but this is important. I have asked for an ethics review. I have asked for a trading in the ethics policy that you wish us to sign. I don't know what I'm signing. Does that make sense to any attorneys in the House? If you don't understand what you're signing, how can you be made to sign something? How? Mrs. Clark told me, I had to sign your deed over. I had no choice. So who told her to sign it? Dan Kroll. I have no choice. But he had sole discretion. He did exactly what he wanted. Sole discretion means, to me, you could take case by case. There's no blanket answer. You know, you decide how you're going to do it. So back to the ethics. We need an ethics board. And Mr. Bliss, I know you're trying. I have no issue with you at all. But I do have an issue that we cannot get together and put viable individuals on a board, not friends of a county person. Not people that are just, I don't know who they are. Aren't there any ethical people in this entire county? Or people that are willing to step up, ministers, people that, you know, have industry behind them? It's really very, very sad that I can't get what I desperately need, an ethical review. I've been harassed by this person in the past. I told this board, the bidder, I told this board, I told the commissioner, I emailed Penny, I did everything, and they said it's not work related. Well, I'm going to give you an example. What if this individual and I had had a domestic relationship? You know what I'm talking about. Then that would have been work related. But just because we worked together and we were neighbors, there was nothing you could do to stop it. And one more thing before I end today. Mr. Wilbur, you were given grace. No problem. I had seen no problem with that. You should be assisted. You made an error. You came together, you had a resolution, you fixed it, and there he sits, an honorable man once again. Where's my grace? Where's my second chance? Where's my dignity that you took from me? I begged this man to take my money. And he said, no, it's against the law. And yet, what's against the law, you fix, but not for me. Now, I know it's ridiculous because we're all connected. So I bless myself, but this is the truth. Mrs. Gacoma is married to the Honorable Michael Gacoma, who brought up Judge Burns through the ranks. And that's the truth. Kim Muller, I read in the paper, is a friend of Miss Clark on the ethics board. That's really all connected. It's cronyism. We have nepotism in here. We need a shake-up so that nobody knows who everybody is by way of friendship, relationships, and if that's not possible, then I don't know what you all are doing here. The fish rots from the head on down. It starts at the federal government and it's come all the way down here. Now you people, this is not what Otsego County is it? You're honorable. You know right from wrong. So I ask, do the right thing. And I spoke to a young man who's going to become a lawyer. You know what he said about ethics? Restore order with ethics. Maybe he'll be a Supreme Court justice one day. And I pray to God he'll come here and do something. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
Hi, I'm Shannon Kirch. I was recently hired by Cornell Cooperative Extension to work on the Otsego County Ag Plan that you guys adopted. So I just wanted to introduce myself, put a face to the name, and feel free to reach out with any suggestions, feedback, if you want to know more about what I'm doing, and I'll be in touch again in the future.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what plan?
The Ag and Farmland Protection Plan.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, hearing none, approval of the minutes from May meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Presentation of petitions.
I have the monthly report for April from Catholic Charities in regards to the ATI program. I have a notice of public hearing from New York State Urban Development Corporation doing business as the Empire State Development for the Hartwick College Capital Project. The public hearing will be held in this room, Monday, June 11th at 11 a.m. to consider the general project plan. And I also have a notice of hearing that was posted and sent to the board members because it has already occurred from the IDA on the proposed Corning project, which was held May 29th, 4 o'clock at the IDA office.
Okay, special presentations. Jody, let's see, go now.
Where would you like me to do my presentation?
Are you using the board or?
No, I don't need
Okay,
any.
so right here, fine.
So I'll come up here. And I do have a couple of PowerPoint presentations, but I figured everybody just wants to hear what we're working on and what we're doing, and really don't want to be bothered with flashing things. So
Maybe I suggest over
Over
here
here.
so that they can.
in your inbox, you're going to find a little report as to what activities are going on.
Yes,
Thank you very much. So when you leave, you'll find out, you'll have a summary of what I'm actually doing and working on. Let me start really quickly by explaining what the initial first couple of months was like working here. Otsego now, for the last 4 years, was, since they became independent and privately organized, spent quite a bit of money on getting things organized and set up and starting projects, or attempting to start projects, a lot of planning work. Because of that, we spent about 4 years ago $700,000 more than we took in. About 3 years ago, we spent about $350,000 more than we took in. We then dropped to $250,000. Last year was our best year. We only lost $200,000. And I'm kind of happy pleased to report that we're projecting our first year of surplus this year. We're actually getting back into the black. And it's taken a lot of effort on removing certain consultants, doing a lot more in-house, and consolidating some of our operations. One of the other things that we've done in order to both help us financially as well as provide more services that we used to somewhat ignore is we've moved other agencies into our building, into our floor, into the floor that we rent. So in addition to Otsego Now, the Chamber of Commerce is now in our offices. The Rural Land Institute Law Division actually rents a space to provide legal assistance to startup businesses. The Small Business Development Center out of the Binghamton office has an office in our building, our floor. And I think in about 2 weeks, Southern Tier East Regional Planning and Development Board out of Binghamton is moving a staff planner into our office, so they'll be also available to assist with us. And then August 1st, I'm pleased to kind of report that the Center for Agriculture Development and Entrepreneurialism, CADE, is also moving into our office. So all of our organizations are now under one roof. We can assist with business planning, financial assistance, whether it be small businesses, large businesses, or agricultural businesses. So, becoming a one-stop shop in that sense. And that's been I think going to be a big improvement in how we operate in our business community. The other things that we're working on are both large-scale projects as well as medium-sized business redevelopment. I'm sure that everybody's kind of heard, I've kind of been reporting on it, that one of our biggest issues in Otsego County, and actually in our region, is energy. We just don't have enough natural gas to attract businesses, and we have some companies that experience brownouts because of lack of electricity. Right now, the State University of New York and Oneonta, Hartwick College, the hospital, Let's Feed, they're all on what they call interruptible supply. I mean, sometimes in January or February, NYSEG calls up those companies and says, we're shutting off your natural gas. We just don't have enough for it. So they switch to oil. State University of New York in the last 4 years has spent an additional $680,000 spent on fuel oil as opposed to their gas. So it's a big cost to them. We attempted to locate a Chinese company here about 3 months ago. We met all of the requirements as far as spacing, location to highway, things like on that nature. When we sent the energy requirements to New York State Electric and Gas, we were told that we couldn't supply them with enough gas or electricity. So we were not in the running to attract that company. Since that time, we've been working very diligently with all of those businesses, as well as businesses in Shenango County. Albergen, former Norgine Pharmaceutical, is on an interruptible supply as well. Their hospital, Fox Memorial Hospital and Shenango Memorial Hospital are both on interruptible supply. So we've been working with that county as well. We've had the president of NYSEG in our offices twice now. He's brought his senior management staff here. And we're trying to resolve how to increase gas supply on a short-term basis, as well as actually reconstructing a line between Oneonta and Norwich to increase capacity. That would give us about 20% increase in capacity. So we are making some strides in that, and once we have a solution, we'll be bringing it back to the board, explaining what we plan on doing, and then actually moving to the next step, which is electricity, and dealing with NYSEG. NYSEG agreed that we'll resolve the gas issue first, and then we'll move on to electricity. With electricity also, I've been meeting, I met 2 weeks ago with a solar energy company that's looking at building solar arrays. Although I was told downstairs by some of the security officers we don't want solar. So I have to tread lightly with them on that. I have another meeting scheduled in a couple of weeks with another solar energy company. And then we're also looking at least where we can control it, in our industrial parks, in the Pony Farm Park, and for example in Oneonta, we'll be switching those, our existing light poles to LED lights to reduce dependence on electricity. And we're also trying to attract companies that are less energy dependent. So that's been a big challenge for the last 3 or 4 months, is dealing with NYSEG and trying to get them to the table. And to be honest, Senator Seward has been very instrumental in arranging some of those meetings with us. And I think we'll actually have a breakthrough on our energy dilemma in the next month. Other projects that we're working on, you just kind of mentioned Corning. Corning is looking at a huge upgrade to their existing facility. It took us 3 or 4 months to negotiate a payment lieu of tax agreement with them. It would be a 15-year agreement. It's a standard IDA pilot agreement and sales tax agreement, so it doesn't deviate from our standard policy. The Mayor of Oneonta is very pleased with that and has accepted that, and we're hoping that we'll have an announcement on that within the next week or two about their huge investment that they're going to make in Oneonta. In addition to that, we're working with Adela Products and Ruby Lakes Glass in Richfield Springs. We're looking at building them a new facility in the village of Richfield Springs. And they're doing some tremendous work with their glass, recycled glass. And I understand that we're going to talk to them about taking on some of the county glass, recycling glass as well. I'm working on a grant application right now with Custom Electronics. We're looking at roughly a $2.3 million investment that they're going to be making. I have talked to the town of Oneonta to do a small cities application. We did submit, after they approved us submitting the application, we submitted a pre-application to the New York State Office of Community Renewal, and they have told us they accept the pre-application and to fill out the full application for financing. So we're hopeful that will, in the next month and a half, actually the awards will be made in August. And announcements will be made as to whether they're going ahead with that project or not. That would also that would actually have a pretty significant increase in employment with that company. We continue to work with Brooks Bottling. In fact, I was at a meeting with them at 8 this morning on their potential expansion for the bottling plant. We'll be working with our engineers and his engineers to do site layouts and grant applications for this summer. ESD has encouraged us, Empire State Development has encouraged us to submit requests for financing for them for this year. We're looking at probably a 2020 construction date on their facility. But it unfortunately takes for a large project like that a couple of years to actually get everything lined up and final designs and approvals. We're also working with some of the smaller companies. We have been working with Steiner's meat processing facility. Originally, we looked at a fairly good-sized expansion this year. Because of the amount of financing that's required, we're actually looking at phasing that project in a couple of 2 or 3 segments. But we're working with them out of Otsego. And that's kind of where we are right now. One of the other things that we're working on is how to continue our training efforts through the Small Business Development Center and the Chamber of Commerce in our offices. We've asked them to somewhat take the lead in the training programs. But they'll be running the training programs out of our offices. We have 2 conference rooms that we provide space to. We just finished one that was with the Small Business Development Center for about 70 people, and we just finished, prior to that, a week earlier, a Department of Labor and Broome County, Department of Labor and Broome County University, Bennington Universities, provided training for about 40 to 45 people in our offices. So kind of in a nutshell, that's what we've been working on. And I am always interested in other businesses and other things that you want to do. So if anybody has any questions, suggestions, you can raise them now.
I thought I heard you say that Shenango Memorial is also an interruptible gas supply.
Yes.
And then we're the possibility of reconstructing the line from Norwich through to Oneonta for a gas line. If they're on an interruptible source and we're on an interruptible source. I don't understand how that's a plus. Because obviously they must not have enough supply there either.
The supply issue is, what we've been told by NYSEG's engineers is if they spend put the investment into reconstructing the line between Oneonta and Norwich, it will increase our capacity by about 20%. They are looking at increasing supplies in the Norwich area by a 10% growth factor over the next 10 years. I believe ultimately they will reconstruct the line from Norwich to where the Derider line comes in, from the Dominion line. The problem what NYSEG has faced is the original estimate to reconstruct the whole line was probably about $50 million. To reconstruct the line from Oneonta now to Norwich is $100 million. So it's half the reconstruction, but twice the cost. So they're looking at doing our phase first and ultimately phase two, probably the Norwich to Dominion line. But it is, it's unfortunate, but there just isn't enough gas. That's a reality, even in the Dominion line. I don't know. You want to take?
Ladies first.
Just on the same subject, and I know I brought this up at NIGA, I feel like there's an opportunity for the Economic Development Office to, Otsego now, to work, instead of on the supply side, work on reducing demand. And I see economic development opportunities there in the construction activity that would be generated. So, for example, if you say that if SUNY Oneonta has to, when the supply is interrupted and they have to go to oil and that's more expensive, would there be a potential for looking at SUNY Oneonta's energy use and figuring out how they could use less? And, in terms of energy efficiency measures, and that puts construction companies to business, it brings that level of economic activity.
The answer to that is yes, and I have been working, as part of our task force, we have a task force of what they call the interruptible supply businesses, and SUNY Oneonta is on that. We are looking at, as I talked about, solar arrays. We're actually looking at property that they own to install those solar arrays on their property that's at the SUNY campus as one of the sites. The other thing, we are looking constantly, I met with them again last week to talk about how can we reduce the energy consumption just in improvements to their operations and improvements to their systems. The investment that Corning is making is actually going to make that facility more energy efficient than what the current capacity does. While we're looking at streetlights in our industrial park, I have talked to the mayor in Oneonta, for example, and we plan on changing all those lights to LED lights as well. One of the advisors that's an advisor to our group, to actually our IDA now, is a gentleman from Sharon Springs, from Farmersfield, from Cooperstown, who was a former vice president of ExxonMobil, very into environmental education and changing of technology, and he's becoming an advisor to us on what other geothermal and other types of energy we can rely on as opposed to just natural gas and coal and oil. So we are taking that very seriously.
Right, so there's alternative sources, and then there's just total demand reduction.
And that's one of the other things that I'm looking for businesses. Some of the businesses like Brooks Bottling, they're going to be energy users. But we're also turning our attention to more high-tech companies, more companies that don't rely on energy in a sense. But unfortunately, and I'm waiting for somebody to ask that question, rely on the internet. With that said, I am working with rural electric, Otsego Electric, they're investing right now $4 million in upgrading the areas just north of Oneonta, in the town of Warrens. Following that, this coming year, they're going to spend another $14 million in 100% broadband coverage in rural areas. And we vehemently oppose their suggestion that we aren't. So we are looking at higher tech broadband companies.
Good, that was my next question.
Yeah. Oh, he knows all the answers. No, Gary, before you ask your question, Jody, can you just speak to some of the infrastructure improvements? Like your executive director reports, just so, because a lot of people don't necessarily know kind of the systems you're putting in place to better, they're all getting that information, but, just some of those components. And I also thought, could you just talk about that pilot, the Corning pilot, and just the investment that the IDA made just to buy, it's not software, right, but it's a system to be able to make that calculation, which you never had before, right?
Right. We've, well, I'll take the easy one first, which is Corning. I don't really want to go into the specifics in Corning because I'm waiting for the senator to actually make an announcement about it. But they are making a huge investment on that. As part of our pilot applications or bond issues or sales tax exemptions, we're required by the state of New York to do a cost-benefit analysis. And while I can do them, they take about a week and a half for me to really reanalyze whether we're getting enough benefit out of giving away those taxes or not increasing those taxes at a faster rate. So we recently purchased from a Rochester think tank firm upstate a program that they offer online that does a cost-benefit analysis. And actually there was an article 2 days ago that I think there's some now 38 or 40 IDAs using that program. And it provides a direct, it took me about 40 minutes to run the program as opposed to a week and a half to do the calculations. So it's very expediently does the calculations, and it's systematic and it's standardized. So it's not like, oh, Jody, you just made a cost benefit, because you can prove anything by numbers. So it's a standardized program that once you run it, it's accepted that this is a legitimate cost benefit analysis that the state will accept. So we just recently purchased that. We have a year subscription. The initial subscription was like $2,500. Then annually the renewal fee is $500. So it's really worth the investment for our agency to have that because we'll be running them not just on pilots and bond issues, but when we do a grant application for custom electronics, we're going to run that model through that model and show that there is a benefit for what we're working on. So it also legitimizes what I do and says, yeah, you're actually doing something. You're cost. And in the case of Corning, I think the ratio was 63 to 1. That was the amount of the benefits to the cost given up. And what it analyzes is things like they have 175 employees. Those employees pay wages. Those have a multiplier effect in sales tax in the local communities. Also, those employees pay state income tax, and so that gets calculated into that. For me to calculate state income tax for each employee, I couldn't do that. So it's a much better system and really documents the cost of that. Other infrastructure that we're working on, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Just the reporting.
Group
Yeah,
within the IDA.
Yeah, within the IDA. You already hit on the hub kind of concept, but just your reporting and it's the executive director reports you're putting out. I think everyone finds those very helpful.
We now do monthly reports. We list every project that's going on, every meeting I have. One of my board members said, it's enough, just send us a summary. So we're trying to streamline that report because it is a little overburdensome. But some of the other things that, we are clearly working on the new industrial park in Oneonta, which is the former rail yards. We actually have wildlife biologists out this week identifying potential habitats and rare species of flora and fauna, and I hope they don't find anything. We are in the process of working with Let's Feed on expanding their rail siding right adjacent to that industrial park. That rail siding actually is very important, not just to us, but the new company that moved into the Oneonta Business Park, Tenter, the Glamorous Tenting Company. They are in the process of finalizing a new market into California this month, and they will be shipping their products by rail from Let's Feed to California. Brooks Bottling has plans ultimately to use rail siding. So in the interim, until we can get the industrial park with new rail siding in there, that will be another area that we would like to ship from Lutz. In addition to that, we're looking at the possibility of purchasing some acreage adjacent to our existing Oneonta Business Park. You'll see in the report that if there's some way we can use some of your miscellaneous revenue from your community development block grant program income, we'd like to acquire that 2 or 3 acres, and that would actually be used for a new rail spur into that industrial park. And we're finding that more and more people want rail spur service. Amazing. Rail is coming back. In addition to that, I've had a series of meetings with the mayor of Oneonta, with the deputy, with the city manager, with the highway department. I had a brief discussion with the chairman who says, talk to the city of Oneonta about repaving and reconstructing Roundhouse Road there. There's a lot of businesses that exist on that road. Unfortunately, our IDA, when we acquired that 80-some acres, we also acquired that road. And everybody says, well, it's IDA property, why don't you guys fix it? And while I'm trying to say that we're gonna have a small surplus this year, I really don't wanna spend $40,000, $50,000 out of our funds resurfacing it. So I have been in touch with some of our state elected officials about actually getting enough money to reconstruct that road so the city would accept it. Because right now resurfacing it is not to city standards. We probably have to spend about $1.3 million on just that leg of the road to reconstruct it. The other big controversial issue will be going on in our board of directors, because I can't probably convince the county, is that there has been some discussions, and we will be authorizing a study of the municipal airport economic vitality of that. The city of Oneonta really has approached us and has been trying to convince the IDA to take ownership of the Oneonta airport. They feel they've been doing it for 50 years, there isn't a direct input to the city, and that is more of a county function, and that they would like us to take it over. My board of directors has their biggest concern, even if we can show viably that we can operate it, their biggest concern is that they hired an IDA director, they did not hire an airport manager. They really don't want to be spending time on that. So we would have to be able to demonstrate, and that's what hopefully the study will show us how we could do that. We would have to demonstrate that we can raise enough money to hire an airport manager to operate that airport. And that's something we're looking at right now.
One of the deficiencies up there, I think you don't have is enough hangar space.
That's correct. I had a meeting yesterday with the mayor, some of the airport commissioners, and McFarland and Johnson, their consulting engineers that are currently updating their master plan. On their initial master plan, they showed reconstruction of some of those hangars. The problem is they didn't show any new hangars. And we explained to them that right now, all those hangars are full. They're at 90% capacity. I was amazed. There's 18 planes up there. Would never have known that. When I was up there a week and a half ago, a jet came in. I didn't know a jet could fly into that airport. So, I mean, there is some...
The grant cycle is coming up for that again.
Yes, and that's why we had that meeting yesterday, was to talk to them about, the top priority for everybody at the meeting was that they want to put a new fuel farm in, above ground tanks. The secondary issue is a gas tank truck, that they can fill jets up without having to decompressurize the jets. So they are working on that. The big issue from an economic development point of view on that is it does not have municipal water and sewer. So putting up additional buildings for businesses that could be associated with airports, we'd have to look at how we could provide water and sewer to them up there. The nice thing about it is that they have rural electric and they have high-speed internet. Who would have guessed? Finally.
Yes. I've had a long time to think about my question, and I think I've summarized it. I hear you talking about a number of expansions to facilities and going out to custom electronics and Brooks and Corning and so forth. And I'm wondering, I'm assuming they're all going to provide new job openings for expanded processes. And I'm wondering what your assessment of the workforce, the condition of the workforce is, and whether any of those folks are concerned about being able to fill those jobs with the local workforce, and if not, what's the next step?
Okay, there's two issues that I have not addressed yet, and I did promise a couple of people that I've recently met with, State University, the hospitals, and last week, Ms. Clark in Cooperstown, they have similar problems with employees. It is not just Otsego County, it's not just Cooperstown, it's not Oleana, it's Broome County, it's Tioga County. Everybody is having a workforce problem. And that stems from, we don't recruit outside people to move to our area very well.
And we don't train people who are here to take the jobs that are here.
That's correct. Now, the issue of moving people here is a bigger problem than just a marketing issue, because we don't have the housing to move here. So one of the other things, those two issues we are attempting to address. On the training issues, again, I'm working closely with the Chamber of Commerce to work on, as well as the Workforce Investment Board and the Department of Labor, we've got to rethink how we're training people. I was looking for an administrative assistant when I first got here. It took me 3 months to hire that person, find a person. And how I got one referral from the Workforce Investment Board. I found that person because of my previous administrative director in Amsterdam knew somebody's daughter who was looking for a job and said, I know that this person is a good worker. With all due respect for Sandy, and please don't record this.
Being related. I'll hold my
Turn and record on now.
Megan Mariano, who's my new administrative assistant, administrative director, is tremendous. I mean, she's been the best find that I've ever found of an employee, I think. She is just dynamic. But it wasn't through the normal channels of how you find somebody. And so that, we've got to change that somehow. And I understand that. And we are going to do that. The other thing is that we have problems with employee spouses. State University called me 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. They have an offer that they want to make out to a professor, and her husband is a electronics person, and he can't find a job. So they're not going to take the job because their spouse can't find a job here. So it's not just the recruitment of individuals, it's how do we recruit for spouses. This hospital has a lot of vacancies for med techs and lab techs, and it's the same thing. You've gotta find dual employment, because those people make $50,000, $60,000 a year. So they depend on their spouse making a decent income as well. And you've gotta find jobs for both of them, not just for one. We don't think that way right now. We don't market that way right now. In addition, if you have somebody that's making $60,000 a year, they can't buy a house here. So we've been working, I went down to Broome County, Binghamton, and Johnson City to meet with a housing developer down there. At 2 o'clock, we have a phone call to Syracuse, the Chamber and I, on a conference call with another developer from Syracuse on the housing developer, of what will it take to get somebody here to build affordable housing for families, starter families. I don't want to get in the apartment business, but I mean, we need better housing, more available housing. So those are two big issues that I don't have answers for you yet. I have agreed that we are going to work on those. Not a good answer.
See you guys later. You mentioned training, 2 training courses that were 170 and 40 people. What is the topic of those trainings?
The larger one was actually startup businesses and how to write a business plan, as well as, it was a two-day session. One was how to write business plans and what goes into those, and then standards about, I believe it was on using spreadsheets, using computers, and more up-to-speed technology-based. I should have taken more on the spreadsheets. The Department of Labor, they ran a course for an entire week, and they covered a number of different topics as far as best practices for manufacturing, all the way to how to, I know it sounds kind of silly, but how to show up at time, and I mean, just basics on that. People want you to be there punctually. But they ran an entire week, and to be honest, I'm trying to arrange those people to come in and do the presentations and do the courses. I don't really sit in on them, so.
I was just
probably
wondering,
should.
because in the past, we've maybe had 8 people show or 13 people, so now we had 70 and 45, so was the topic better advertising?
And again, those are being marketed on a regional basis. There were people from Norwich, from Sydney that attended those. So it's not just Otsego residents that are coming. But again, when you look at somebody like Sydney, there's a prime example where probably a lot of the people that work at Amphenol live in Otsego County, because Sydney doesn't have any housing either. And they have 70 to 80 vacancies a year in Amphenol, and they have people commuting from Syracuse, Rochester, Pennsylvania, because they have the same problem with housing. They don't have any. And so that is it's a regional issue. And we're starting to, I know people say, why are you spending so much time in Delaware County and in Broome County? Well, we're trying to collectively say we have a regional problem, we've got to solve it regionally.
Could you also tell me about Codium, where that stands?
Codium. I think I spelled it wrong on that spreadsheet, on that thing you'll find in your box, but we've been talking about technology-based companies. There's a company called Codium, which, if I repeat myself, say, we've heard this story, because I've talked about them to a number of people. Codium is a downstate company that teaches kids how to code. And I said, what is coding? And they said, well, it's coding computers, programming computers. And I said, like, oh, Fortran and COBOL. And they looked at me and said, how old are you? And then I had a reporter come in, and he brought his grandkid in because he was watching him. And I was talking to this 7, 8-year-old kid, and I said, oh, what do you like to do? He goes, I love to code. And I'm like, I have no idea what you guys are doing. So anyway, they want us. They run programs in SUNY Purchase, in Westchester County, and in Brooklyn High School there. The 13 graduating kids in Brooklyn last year that graduated from the class, once they graduated, all 13 got jobs at Google as programmers. So they are a really high-tech training company. They start with kids in 7th grade, actually somewhat earlier, but go all the way to high school. They teach high school students to teach the junior high school students. And that's what they claim their success is, students teaching students how to code. They said there's much more responsive, there's more interaction between them. They said when you have adults teaching them, it just doesn't work out. Some of my board members said, we're gonna fund this, it's gonna cost us $250,000. And I said, oh, okay, we'll fund it. And fortunately, my board said, okay, we want one of our other board members to analyze this. And she analyzed it, and we pushed it off for 1 year, till January of this coming year. I apologize. So right now, we're working on, in fact, Megan, my administrative director, went to a training course yesterday on Appalachian Regional Commission grant applications. We're gonna be doing an Appalachian Regional Commission grant application for $100,000. We would look toward the board to say, if we can take $50,000 out of your program income from small cities, community development grant, that would be an eligible use, that we would put that toward the pot. And then we're going to be approaching the Corning Foundation, because they do educational grants for programs in communities. They have manufacturing facilities in it, and since we just worked to deal with them, we figured now's a good time to submit a grant application. So we figured between the three of those that we could actually,
How about REDC?
I haven't worked on that one yet.
Because they did a robotics.
Yeah. So we're just trying to put together the financing for it this year to start the program next year in upstate New York. The problem that we're having is that we have been having meetings with BOCES. We have a meeting tomorrow afternoon with some of the high schools. We want somebody to take ownership of it as opposed to the IDA that actually does education. Right now, Hartwick and SUNY Oneonta are identifying students that would be the first group of teachers to teach the high school students, and then hopefully it'll be self-sustaining. But we are moving ahead with that.
Thank you.
Question. So you mentioned a lot of really amazing initiatives. I was wondering, what are some of the ways that you foresee in the immediate future of the county and the IDA partnering on this?
Hey, you want to repave Brown House Road?
Can't repair our own roads.
Yeah.
I think there's a number of ways. One right now is that we have been working with your county planning department and our oversight committee on possibly using some of your miscellaneous revenues and program income from your small cities funds to assist us with some of our projects. And you have a need to get rid of that money before the state takes it back, and we certainly have a need for possibly using some of that. One of the options on that right now is, again, depending on how much how much miscellaneous revenue you identify and what the use is for, part of that money could be used as a match to study. I know we would like to have a new development site in the eastern part of the county, in the Genevas area. And part of that money could be used to do the engineering study of how to access that site better. And it wouldn't have to be a lot of money, I mean, 25,000, because we could match it with 25. So those are some initial immediate things that could be done. I think collectively, I've been working, and I plan on attending on a regular basis the oversight committee that we report to. But I think collectively, you guys should call me or email me and tell me what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong. I do take constructive criticism. So if you don't like energy, fossil fuels, tell me, because and certainly, there are going to be things that are going to be controversial, like the stupid airport. I mean, the big issue on the airport, for example, is if we end up owning it, I mean, that's what the city keeps saying, you can take it off the tax rolls, and we don't have to pay taxes to the town of Lawrence. I'm like, then the town of Lawrence is going to love me, don't they? So that is a concern.
It's difficult to make money with an airport.
I'm sorry?
It's very difficult to make money with an airport.
I know, I've visited 3 of them now. And that may be something that we could talk about, partnering with the county and the city and the IDA of how we could maybe mesh to make that airport more viable. But I'm not here to ask you guys for money today. Good. Tomorrow,
like that.
I really.
That's next Tuesday.
No, I learned early on is that we've got to show that we can do things before I'm going to come to you and say, we need some help. I mean, you're going to say, well, what's your track record? What have you ever done? So we understand we have to produce this, and we're trying to. But give us time, there's only 2 of us. Well, Megan makes up for 2, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Good job. Thank you. Okay, standing committees. Public Works, Mr. Representative Overrider.
Thank you, Chairman Bliss. At our Public Works meeting, we had Dennis Clark from Veterans come in and request to declare some surplus Chevy van, which was moved upon. We had Jordan Clemens from Soil and Water, and he had distributed his report discussing where we are with our timber, which has been marked. Sales are ready to be coming up. He was waiting to hear about some monies that would be coming out potentially from some grant funding. He'd asked for the use of our forestry cabin to be set up as a point of presence, for the forestry program. So some work had been done there to get that ready. And he also presented some information on a hazard mitigation plan pertaining to streams and water, things of that, I guess, re-appropriating and fixing streams as far as that, and going to the necessary towns to get some interest from them. Highway Department, there has been work completed on County Highway 16, 48, and 13, which was completed Monday, this is June 4th. Some more work, micro paving is being finished on County Highway 33, and is starting on County Highway 16. County Highway 6 is coming along nicely, and we are doing a paving now with our own crew, which is saving us some money as far as the cost for that. County Highways 29A and 39 were paved by the CSP company. We've got some equipment that we had appropriated and approved that is finally coming into service. We have a John Deere loader that has been received, our brush tipper. We have a Volvo excavator, which is scheduled to be delivered tomorrow. Tractor portion should be delivered next week. 12 of the 13 new plow trucks have been delivered to Utica General, and they're going through them currently and setting them up with the appropriate dump boxes and plow equipment. And we should start to see those roll into action here at the county the first part of September. One thing, and I'm sure this comes as no surprise to most people, we are seeing or being told that the price of asphalt will be going up, never down. We have a culvert box being delivered next week to County Highway 16 that our crew will be installing for about 2 weeks, and then one on County Highway 18 in South Evanston and one on County Highway 1 just outside of Rockdale. And we're still under having our county forces complete these projects will save, we're projection will save enough money to help defer the cost of the excavator, which is some good news that we have from there. From building maintenance, that's the reason why I'm sitting down, because I got so many papers. I usually like to stand, but I got so many papers here. So there are some rooftop AC units that have been broken down and running on. Last fall, we had some companies come out, try to repair these several times. The work has finally been modified for what we would call just a now repair, but these units will need to probably be replaced in the near future. They're 50 years old, and they're really, the biggest challenge that we're finding is that they're no longer being supported by the manufacturer as far as parts and replacement parts go. I did reach out to Doug Zerskis and had him give me some information for the solar savings. And when we should be, according to Doug, at 100% operational now, and our production numbers are starting to come in. But year to date, we're at least experiencing a $29,000 savings, produced somewhere in the neighborhood of about 600 kilowatts hour from our solar farm. We've also installed some photo cells and lights around, which is saving us some man hours as far as security goes. And we are also looking at interior ceiling lights, which will be switched out to LEDs by the end of the year. This is for the public safety building. And the water sewer study at the public safety building is about complete. We should be getting a report out here, and I would hope at our next public works meeting to have a report completed there with our future needs for the jail and future budgetary concerns as far as that goes. Dorm renovations, bidding documents and specifications are on track and are just about to be done. Look to have those here shortly. And again, Doug did some work at the forestry cabin in hopes of trying to keep some water from freezing this coming winter. He's been dealing with usual issues as far as keeping the grass cut and the county lands and offices looking good. I will also look at Alan Ruffles had come in at the last meeting as well, and he had discussed a hole in the driveway at the Unadilla property and our options to fix it, which we then moved ahead with not to exceed a total cost of $7,000. I do have some quick, on the 242 building, I was contacted by Mayor Gary Herzig, and he had inquired about wanting to talk to us as a county and or I guess Public Works and start to look at what would be steps involved if we are interested in the 242 building. Now, nothing has been done as of this point. We have not made any decisions. It's simply exploratory. We're looking to gather the information, potentially see if it makes sense from a fiscal standpoint, as well as maybe improving some of the services that the county offers. I'll reach out to our board members if a date can be fixed with Gary and hopefully get some information on it. I don't know, I've only heard through conjecture and word on the street that there's someone interested in purchasing it, but I have not been contacted directly on any of that. I believe that is about, and there was other, we also, according to Representative McCarthy, we did McCarty, sorry, yes, McCarty. We did discuss the automobiles coming into surplus that had been handled by the Highway Department when Ron Tedder was there. It will now be handled by Public Works, and we will be moving forward with taking those vehicles that are still able to run, putting them aside, getting photos taken, and putting them up for auction, whereas other vehicles that are deemed either non-usable, non-repairable, we will also be looking at either selling those as scrap and/or parts potentially. So that's, if I've missed anything from the meeting, jump in and.
The only thing is that we set a deadline for those applications to be filled out, to be sent to Carol, so we could go at them, over them at the next Public Works meeting. And anything that needed to be surplus equipment should come to Public Works at the next meeting. I did reach out to Auction International. They did have a contract with Onondaga County, and that contract was extended, but it had expired, but they hadn't signed it yet. But the gentleman told me that Schoharie County had a contract, and we could piggyback off of that, and I checked with Ellen, and she said it was okay, so I moved forward with getting the application for each vehicle, so we could find out what runs and what doesn't.
Thank you, Keith.
The only other thing is, I'd like to pull resolution number 177, it's Gillies. At the committee meeting, we approved to extend the payment to July 31st, 2018, and there's a resolution in here extending it to the end of the year, hopefully to get the RFP out and working by June 30th.
And I just have I just received an email from Andrew Trombley for the tower RFP. I'll just read it here ever so briefly. After receiving feedback from our E911 commissioner, I will be making a few minor scope changes to the RFP and will be prepared to release today. Please advise if you would like a final review. Also, if you had any vendors that you had spoken with in the past on this project, please forward their email addresses to me. Thanks, Andrew. So, I guess we're hoping to have the RFP out for the tower management today. I will look at the attachment and see if there was any changes. Our meeting, which will be, our next meeting is June 13th, which is Wednesday at 12:30, and the second floor conference room here in Kutztown. Any questions? I'd be more than happy to answer. Yes. Oh.
Go ahead.
Oh.
Okay. The stream project that you mentioned, that Jordan brought up, also brought it up at SWEC, and had the his colleague from, I think it was Cayuga County, come and speak. Chemung County, to come up and speak to SWEC. It really makes a lot of sense to me anyway, and to a lot of other of us. It's a win-win-win for everyone. It requires some investment in the front end of it, but it has to do with purchasing a number of pieces of heavy equipment to deal with stream and culvert issues, and then have them ready the next day, instead of putting them on a list for your highway department, but having them ready the next day after a stream incident. And I've been watching all this flooding in Maryland 2 years ago, a week or so ago, and then Sunday night again 3 times, and and we're vulnerable to that. Every culvert is vulnerable to that. So that sounds like a really good idea. But I think, and Jordan's being the front man on that. But I think we need to decide as a body, either through Public Works and SWEC, or as a whole body, how to support him in doing that. Or whether to. I mean, maybe we don't think it's a good idea. That's fine. But we need to come down, yes or no, because he does need some help for that to work out well. And it has just had spectacular results in Chemung County. And Jordan or I can give you more information because I have the booklet. Or anybody on SWEC can do that.
Representative Lappin.
Thank you. I agree with Gary. I think the most prudent approach to addressing the stream program is to have the SWEC committee look at the flood mitigation and environmental aspect of Jordan's program. It's really a two-parter. And then the Public Works Committee is to coordinate the logistics behind county equipment, county investment, and highway crews, the staffing aspect of it. It would also be worthwhile. Jordan is trying to secure municipal buy-in. It is more challenging than not, depending on the composition of the town board. So I would request that we all do our best, if we're inclined to support the program, is to reach out to Jordan and try to, put in a good word with your local town board representatives, because that program will rely on investment through an IMA or other mechanism at the town level.
Piggybacking off of what Danny said, I had asked Jordan to put together some type of a punch list for us to go before our town boards and our districts to talk to them about that.
Good idea.
And, because you hear Jordan talk about it, and then by the time you get to the town board meeting, what did he say? So if he put together a punch list or a presentation that we can give to our town boards, I think that would be extremely helpful.
According to Jordan, a week or so ago, he has already received a $200,000 grant from Senator Seward to buy an excavator, so.
Good start.
So that should,
That's not a very big excavator.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty good size one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
$200,000 buy it for you.
It was the one that he wanted.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Who's gonna run it?
That's
Well,
what that was
that's the
out.
other
that's
question.
for the,
Yeah,
That's part of the, that's part of the intermunicipal agreement, is providing an operator.
You know, you're gonna get highway workers, but yet those highway workers got equipment that can run over here too, you know, so.
Right.
There's a lot that's gotta come into this before.
Well, it's a piece of the puzzle.
Has Jordan been to the Association of Towns to talk to them at all?
He's gone to the superintendent's meeting, but I don't believe he's gone to the Association of Towns.
And they're not well attended.
What's that?
My understanding, superintendent's meetings.
Oh, no?
Oh, highway superintendent's
Yeah.
meeting?
I haven't
No,
been to that.
town.
The ones that don't
he's
go?
been to the highway.
Oh, has it been highway?
Yeah, he
Don't
has.
give me that crap.
Well, I'm just saying.
He said,
Well, what you hear and what you know is two different things, you know, what the
The
truth.
Association of Towns usually meets at the firehouse,
Yeah, he should.
and they
go
serve food.
I was just gonna say, so there's three major components. There's the community buy-ins and municipal buy-in. So we've gotta get our towns on board with the idea, and there's shared services opportunities there. So that's another thing we could look into for funding. If this program is to get going in the next year, we need to look at it while we do budget talks, because the way it worked for Chemung County was, all the towns paid a per person, per resident tax. So the larger your town, the more you're gonna be buying in. And then, in Chemung County, this largest city provided the operator. In Otsego County, since the city isn't gonna have the bulk of the projects, they'll mostly be spread out among the towns, it might make more sense for the county to provide the operator. And that's, and Jordan has discussed this with Bill. And nothing is concrete or anything like that, it's still in an idea kind of stage, but, and then he got the state to pitch in for the excavator, so it's many municipalities working together, or levels of government, and, but if we are to make this work, if as a county this is something we wanna do, we have to, encourage our towns to participate. That reduces the cost for the county, but also the county will need to contribute, maybe in terms of an operator.
Along with that, maybe perhaps, as a trade-off for the operator, maybe the county will be able to use the excavator in their own projects if necessary.
I think that
Well,
was
hopefully
the
this
understanding.
will-
Oh, I had one question. Someone phoned me and they were wondering, was County Route 14 going to also be improved this summer? It's the one that goes over to New Lisbon. 16 is in New Lisbon. I didn't hear you mention it. I just wondered if I could call them back. Pretty specific of a question, I'm sorry.
I will find out
Okay,
and get back to
fair
you
enough.
on that one.
Thanks.
I don't see it on the list, but that could change.
I've got one for you. Pete.
Oh, yes.
The last thing is I was in Maryland on Monday. There is one county-owned rail crossing, I believe, in the town. According to them, and they were kind of curious to see it get repaired. So they said might be worth just reaching out to Tim Walkie, superintendent, to ask which crossing it is, because they're looking at that as part of their comprehensive plan update.
County Route 56.
It might be.
I think it's 56. It goes just after, yeah, it's County Route 56.
Yeah, so they were asking about that, so that's still bringing it up. So, yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Well, since you brought up 242 Main Street, Danny and I went to the City of Oneonta Common Council meeting last night, where they really didn't discuss, but they passed a motion about the Westcott lot, which is that parking lot that's adjacent to the county office building. So what this motion enables them to do is to let the mayor negotiate a selling price, for that property. So we were kind of passing some emails back and forth about, Matt brought up the concern about parking there. I mean, it's gonna be some kind of a mixed-use project where there'll be parking on the bottom and either commercial or some other kind of community spaces in the down, on the street level, and then residential up on the top. So, parking is a concern in general, but I mean, Matt did bring up some concerns about the population that uses that. It's very convenient for them, and anyway, I just bring this up because maybe if we do have an opportunity to sell the building, maybe these projects could work together. I mean, I know this has been on the table for a long time, and hopefully it doesn't move too fast, but it's probably time for us to really start making some decisions about what we're gonna do. We are waiting for this transportation, whatever the name of this, transformation grant through I think it's the Department of Health. I'm not exactly sure where it's coming from. And Sumat should have some information on that. It's supposed to be very soon, I think, to relocate. So, I mean, it might be perfect if everything all worked together, but I know we're all doing a lot of different projects right now, but this is something that I think we're gonna have to start focusing some attention on.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's been in the works, and it involves a couple of different committees, because it involves 3 different committees: Public Works, Health and Education, and Human Services are all involved.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to wait till we find out about the grant, or if we should, because that's going to have a big impact on it, don't you think?
Well, I think the planning has to come together, and the grant will help determine whether it's feasible or not. But if we wait till we get the grant to plan it.
And DMV should be involved.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
DMV should be involved, they don't report any of those committees.
Correct. And my understanding is some of the interested parties are willing to, even if they did take ownership of 242, they would be willing to have DMVs remain.
Yeah. So Pete, you or the committee might want to get some info from Sumat about that grant and what that would provide for, and what the timing is, and how that might mesh with the movement towards selling
In fact, I'll
and
probably
relocating everyone.
probably ask Sue if she could come to our next meeting and update us. Yeah.
Where we wanna go?
Huh?
A lot of moving parts.
Absolutely, a lot of moving parts, absolutely.
I would wonder if the board would deem it worthwhile to set up a task force. There is, there are a few of us I'm on all 3 committees, for example, but it'd be worth getting people together, because there's going to be a lot of communication. There's a 4th party, which is the city, involved too. I think it'd be worth just getting everyone together so that we're communicating the same information, and that we're all moving in the same direction, and that the committees aren't kind of having redundant discussions, considering how fast this is moving.
Probably not a bad idea. Excuse me?
As you said, he's on all three committees, I nominated the coordinator.
He's also a representative of the city itself, so I think
Yeah.
that's.
Yeah.
You wanna,
We need to decide if you want to stay
we
with
want
it
to,
first.
try to organize something like that, and we can,
Yeah.
that's something we can do.
Yeah,
Or you
I
can take it on as a committee of one, like Mr. Wilbur does, we'll see.
Just have a meeting and say, okay, what do you think about this? I'm like, I'm.
Lack of quorum.
Yeah.
Lack of fun.
Well, I think that might be a good idea, so we'll talk a little more about that.
Sounds good.
I don't know if we have to, task force can be organized without full board approval, correct? Is that, no, I'm not sure about that.
Well,
Ellen, that's a question for Ellen, I guess.
More than 7 unless we wouldn't have to.
Okay, anything else?
We're gonna have task force for the highway garage, do that.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Something.
yeah.
Speaking of which, that's part of that, tentatively, we're having a meeting this Friday, although I haven't heard back that it was official yet, on the highway building. Nick Saban from BOCES and Bill Mason, who's away at highway conference right now, he'll be back later today or tomorrow. And people from Cooperstown, Bassett, Village, Village of Milford, Town of Milford, at least to get that ball rolling a little more. So hopefully we'll have something to report on that in the near future. IGA, Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The IGA committee met on May 8th, and we had Karen Sullivan from the planning department come in and discuss the county's program income revenue, which we've actually heard referenced several times this morning through Jody's presentation. And so I thought I would just talk about that a little bit. It's from money that the county has had available through revolving loan programs for decades. The state asked for a report card basically on those funds, which we did provide by May 31st. And the amount of money in play is a significant amount. Karen, I think Miko had given you the numbers, is 580,000, correct? More than that, okay. So we've identified, Karen has been working on identifying, and she did the program income identified program income, and proposed several options to pretty much use it or lose it on that money. So some of the things that we talked about were another round of ag micro grants, which have been very helpful to different kind of entrepreneurial farmers in the county in the past. Other potential projects were identified: the rail siding, the Andela Stone, Codedum, Brooks House, a barbecue, custom electronics, things that Jody kind of talked out a little bit about today. This is where we would have the potential to help on funding with those through this program income. The next step is to present to identify what we want to work on, and then present the proposals to the New York State Program Director, and then they would say, yes, it fits in with what that money's intended for, and your idea, go ahead with it, or we might have to rework it. So we'll make sure that we're compliant with our ideas before we commit all the money to them. We have 2 interns who are attending the Cornell Local Roads Seminar. We also, through Resolution 189 today, approved a general approval for the county to submit grants to the consolidated funding application. So it covers all the bases, whoever is applying. We have the board's approval to do so by approving Resolution 189. We amended the trolley contract with the Village of Cooperstown. The increased cost is because they want us to go up to Railroad Avenue, and it is all reimbursable through the STOA, so it is reimbursable. We did break down into a further discussion on efficiencies, and we're talking about a goal to move ahead and modernize data collection for payroll and records management, and wanted to work with the treasurer and with Brian Picorni in IT IT to come up with a strategy to implement a more modern timekeeping system for the payroll throughout the county, maybe starting with one department and building it out from there. We do have some money in the budget that we put in for the 2018 budget, so now seems like a good time to begin building out what that might look like. We also going to just switch to our second meeting now. We had the county management meeting, and everyone received a county management survey, and I have not filled mine in yet. I'm just going to fully disclose that, but I think I have company, so I encourage everyone to fill that in. Those discussions have been very helpful. We are having a county administrator from Oswego County, Phil Church. He's attending our 12th of June meeting at 10 a.m. If you have specific questions for Mr. Church, you can attend in person and ask them, or you can email them to us and we will ask them for you, and they'll be reflected in the minutes. So if you have any specific questions regarding county administrator, so Mr. Church will be with us on the 12th. I also spoke with the NISAC president, Steve Aquario, and he is going to either call us at our June 26th meeting, or hopefully he wanted to come in person and talk about how NISAC might be helpful to us in maybe possibly funding some things. In any case, more questions, more information to help us make a better decision when the time comes for that decision to be made. I will take any questions.
What time is your next meeting?
Oh,
The 26th
the 12th of June, 9 a.m.
And the 26th meeting
is at 9 a.m. also. The 26th is our second, yeah. So yeah, I kind of inadvertently told you when the next meeting was, June 12th. Oh, yes,
I'm sorry, I forgot what county Phil Church.
Oswego.
Oswego.
and Andrew.
Meg, just, can you, it's in our minutes, but can you just give the quick time frame that we talked about? Just hit on that?
Yes.
Just so everybody here kind of hears that?
Yes, let me find it right
And I
here.
have it right here.
Oh, actually, I got it. I could. Okay, I'll look at it from yours. Yeah, so this is in the meeting minutes, but we did work out a timeline regarding county government discussion, so we wanted to make sure that we didn't just spin our wheels forever in a committee, so we're opening it up. And please note, at any time, all members of the board are welcome to come and participate in our discussions concerning county management. So we will be receiving the survey results and analyzing the responses. Based on survey responses, we will possibly interview specific department heads and specific members of the board. So people who, for some reason or another catch our attention, are flagged for further detail, we'll pull them in, whatever, not in a bad way, in a good way maybe. So we'll pull you into our committee meeting and ask you questions, and you can ask us questions. At the August IGA and county governance meeting, we are going to prepare a county governance update and then present that at the September board meeting. So that will be a kind of a landmark. During the month of September, we hope to schedule one or more public information sessions. And so this is still in the very beginning stage, but hopefully have one in the northern end of the county and one down towards Oneonta. Just to have people tell us what they think and listen and help formulate a better response, a better project going forward. In the fall, we would make our, craft a local law, job description, and then make the final recommendations regarding manager or administrator. So, it's an ambitious timeline. We'll see where it goes. That's where we are.
I just you say manager, administrator, have you decided that you're not going to present any information on an executive?
We will definitely bring that into the discussion. It just is how it turned out in the
But
minutes.
that's what I'm asking, yeah.
No, it's, no, executive is still very much something that people have to decide, because this is a,
Committee
Hmm?
meeting, coming, we have,
Right, but if someone's gotta take at 10 o'clock on the 29th, everybody would hear the same thing at a board meeting.
yeah,
Get and have the opportunity to hear
Yeah.
the same information.
let me just write that down.
of course, if you go with executive, then that means we have to get into a whole charter revision, which is, that's a whole other layer.
It does, yeah.
Andrew?
I mean, I was just gonna say that I think the consensus that's growing is that this local law would allow us to move forward with kind of strengthening the the county management system while we pursue a charter. Because I think there's agreement that a charter, whether it's an executive or a charter for a manager or administrator, I think there's agreement that we want a charter. It's just, you know, in the short term, how do we kind of move forward while we work on some of the, you know, charter, from what we understand, is a 3 to 5 year process, or depending.
Montgomery County did it in a
Whatever.
very short time,
Yeah.
but
I
it
was
is
gonna
a
say Montgomery
much
did it in a
more,
very short period of time,
um,
but I don't think there's a quorum of the board on that committee that's making these decisions, and that should, so everybody
this
should have
is-
the information
Yep,
necessary to
this
make
is
a.
kind of the overall, this
You know.
is the general,
Well,
you know,
Yeah.
vetting going on.
definitely, if you create a charter, you're codifying everything that happens in the county from the top to bottom, and it strengthens whatever the county is doing. So the key would be to decide, do you wanna do that before you go forward with your management system, or do you want to have a administrator or a manager in place, do the charter, and then revisit manager, executive, elected, you know, it's a different process. But
and ultimately, the voters will decide.
ultimately, they will, because, yeah, for many,
Well,
there's
only
many
if
ways
you go
for
with
them
an
to show
executive,
that.
they don't vote on whether you pick a county manager or not.
Right,
Correct.
right, if it's
That's
just
correct,
10
well,
minutes.
yeah,
Right.
county manager, they still could, it doesn't necessarily rely on that, it relies on how many duties you pass on to the manager. And also, eventually, they will decide at the ballot box, even
Yeah,
if you don't vote.
if we put a county manager in, then they
You
know
can have a
that,
county manager and still be required to
did
vote
it.
for the voters.
My understanding is if you take duties that heretofore were responsibility of the board members and you are attempting to change their responsibilities, that's when you have an issue.
Correct.
Correct,
Ellen?
and a manager, if you choose the model, whatever name you put on it, that's where it gets somewhat confusing, because we, you know, throw around these names. But if that person, you know, ultimately reports to the board, then that model does not go in front of the voters.
Right.
So not every model of this does go in front of the voters.
But, so just to add one more layer, if we pursue a charter, the charter, even if it calls for an executive or not, would go before the voters.
Correct.
So,
Within a charter, you can lay out different officers than the ones that you are required to have by county law if you so choose. I mean, there's some limits on that. So within the charter itself, you could have whatever you want to call this person and whatever duties they have could be within that. And it would not be a county executive who would, he or she would be independently elected, so.
and there are counties that have charters and administrators. Tompkins County is an example of that.
Correct. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. You can
One more.
I know, there are, you
Choice.
know, I mean, there are multiple options, including several that I don't think any county use actually, so.
We could be the first.
President is one
Oh,
of them,
yeah.
correct.
Okay. So we did next meeting, June 12th.
Good, thank you. Human Services, Representative Kootenai.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will
Yeah.
be brief, hit the highlights. The minutes are available and certainly be willing to answer any questions now or at some future time. We met on May 14th, at 1:13 when we started, it says here. Preventive services contract, again, this is not the first time I've mentioned this. We're continuing to work on the preventive services contract. Preventive services is the system within DSS that provides probably the largest number of caseworkers out in the field. Preventive term means trying to prevent a family from being separated by providing them services that will strengthen them and be able to serve their children better. But we're looking to contract out some of that work simply because of our turnover problem. We've got an RFP going out, proposal to Onondaga. No layoffs will occur. Well, we won't have to lay anybody off because we contracted out the services because there are so many vacancies to begin with. So that continues going through Onondaga and the proper process, so forth. There's the big move and the little move in DSS. The big move is quite a number of people are moving around on the third floor in order for the people who work together to actually have an office together, which hasn't been the case. And there are also a few folks coming over from the Meadows in order to, again, work with the folks who supervise them. So it's good to be on the same floor or in the same building as the person who supervises you. We talked about the Family First Prevention Act. We were talking earlier, before the meeting started, about ideas and decisions that are made that sound really good and then have unforeseen consequences. And the Family First Prevention Act is one of the incredibly complex things that is going to have a lot of consequences down the road. The idea is to reduce the number of kids and the kids who are moved into facilities for one reason or another, and reduce the amount of time that they're there, and that's a good thing. But in order to do that, basically the state is making it harder to serve these kids in certain fringe areas. So that's a very, very complex thing. We don't even know how it's going to affect us yet, but we talk about it every month. It's important and eventually impactful. There's a community garden grant that we hope to apply to our tiny homes community behind the Meadows, and also to have to upgrade the landscaping around the Meadows. Meg's been helpful in that regard as a professional in the area, and we thank you for that. The letter of support. Eve and a couple of folks from our department with the Cooperstown Fire Department who had expressed some concern about the tiny home community behind the Meadows and perhaps the increase in services. I think that meeting went well. They got very far in terms of their ability to communicate and to lay out the services that DSS can provide that would ameliorate the effort that the fire department would have to make. Talked about housing grants that might support the tiny homes. And you may remember Executive Order 151 a couple of years ago, came out all of a sudden, that said that any homeless person who cannot be forced into a shelter, and there's different levels of this in terms of the various homeless populations, can be forced, impelled to go to a shelter if the temperature goes below 32 degrees. You may remember that is a big deal for us anyway. So you need to have warming stations, which can be almost anything, places where these folks can go. The tiny homes grouping can, if we can consider them a warming station, then we get further funds from New York State to support that, because there are funds available for that. So all these different pieces of the puzzle are slowly, very slowly coming together. Talked about the safety committee and hoping that a meeting would be scheduled soon to implement the proposals for the meadows.
I'm working that out on that as we speak.
Excellent, excellent.
I'm waiting for some answers.
Okay. We talked about more Medicaid cases being taken over by the state, and this very, very slow Medicaid takeover, which is, again, very complex, as you might expect. But that's finally going smoothly. And our next meeting is June 14th at 1:30 on the second floor right across this way here. And you're all invited.
Questions for the chair?
I do. Fire department, what was it, Suresh, was it because of the ambulance, or was it because of the?
Yeah. Apparently there is an issue in Oneonta, where most of our homeless population lives, where someone will need to get to a doctor's appointment at the hospital, and they'll call an ambulance. You know, they call 911 because they need a ride. I mean, very, very poor decision-making, obviously.
That happens more than knowing.
That kind of thing. And he was concerned about that, and we have ways to vouchers for taxis and so forth that can come before that. Also, there'll be supervision there where there is not in Oneonta in the hotels. So, and lots more like that. But I think.
But you're not talking about the Otsego site doesn't have that, right?
No. Just the hotels in Oneonta. Yeah. Again, the Otsego site has supervision.
Right. And there was some pushback on that, and I did some research and debunked some of that.
Great. Anything else?
Thank you, Gary.
Sorry.
Public safety, Representative Frazier.
We met on May 15th. We approved some purchases and filling of a vacant funded position for sheriff. Nicholas Sabin, the superintendent of, I think he's deputy superintendent. Milford Bose's joined in the discussion of creating, filling, and funding a full-time school resource officer to be put on his campus. We approved that concept, and we're entering into a contract with Bose's. We discussed the funding of the $1 million jail improvement loan from Community Bank with Alan Ruppels and Henry Kristen. We discussed fee adjustments and length of time between inspections with the code officer. Rob O'Brien of 911 discussed the progress of our 3 tower sites. They are going very well. Mark Klingler reported on our SEPA, the County Emergency Plan Assessment. That's complete. Well, you'll find in the minutes that he reported everything was going out to bid on our training center. I got an email from him last night, and they seem to want to completely, not completely, but significantly change the scope. I haven't had a conversation about it with that, but I honestly can't tell you where we are with that now. So if they want to move money forward for next year, I'll have a conversation. Dan and I talked about it. We're going to sit down with the planning committee for the training center committee. So I don't know where that is. Alan Kakoma came. We had another lengthy discussion regarding our conflict defender program, our public defender's office, CAFA funding, and the improvement enhancements that we can that are going to be funded. Many goals have been developed. Gradual implementation will come. when we left last month, we all agreed to hire a gentleman to fill in for to take our job as our probation director too. Negotiations, he came back with some negotiations, some changes, and between myself, Penny Gentile, and the board chair, we have withdrawn that offer to him. We've gone back to the state and gotten an extension to continue how we are. That was not our desired outcome, but that is where we're at. Anybody has, we can either go into executive session and discuss that, or you can talk to me or Dave privately. We are meeting again on June 18th at 12:30.
Any questions for the chair? You say 10:30? 12:30. Any questions for the chair?
That's too good to be true.
Thank you. Health and Education, Representative Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We met with the coroner, Terry Knapp. He expressed his satisfaction with the process of relocating the mobile morgue. So it's now going to be stored in an enclosed area. The key will be available at emergency services. And Terry Knapp outlined the procedure of notifying the control center when the mobile morgue will be in use. So there's some cooperation going on there, and it seems like the system will work pretty well. Sue met with us. We made a few appointments for her. We also approved the transfer of funds, which I think we discussed here last month, the $78,000 for criminal actions from January to June of this year. So that was approved. Sue also discussed a couple of grants. So there's a substance use disorder jail funds, waiting for more information about how those will be allocated, as well as the transformation grant that Representative Shannon brought up earlier. But we do expect to hear word on that pretty soon. Sue also attended a meeting this month, which we haven't heard about, but we'll hear about next week, regarding the rollout of the opioid state target response grant. And that involves telemedicine and community services, Narcan training, and outreach. So hopefully we can share more information about that next month. Heidi Bond met with us. She requested approval to contract with Health Research, Inc. for the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Contract for the time period from July 1 this year through June 30th next year. We approved that. And also an RFP has gone out for the transportation services, which we also discussed here previously. They're going to be looking at ways to improve the efficiency and get some cost savings with the transportation that her department provides. Just the main miscellaneous item I wanted to talk about was actually already discussed, so the 242 Main Street issue and the coordination there. So the committee members had questions about the grant that was made, so I did reach out to Sue, and I think all the committee members have seen the grant at this point, so we can discuss that again next month if we'd like, and hopefully we'll have more information then as well. But again, the other issue that was brought up was that parking issue and how it's going to impact both the employees and the clients of 242 Main. That was the high points, I think. We're set to meet on Monday, June 11th at 9 a.m. at the Meadows Building, and I will entertain any questions. I'm being heard, I'm going to sit down quickly.
Great, thank you. Sweat, Representative McCarty.
Thank you, this is going to be brief. We met on May 15th. Karen introduced her new intern, who's going to be doing the highway asset management plan. Also introduced the new ag implementation specialist. She also requested to piggyback off of Albany County RFP for a contract for MXI for 2019 Hazardous Waste Day, and we approved that. She also requested approval to extend the intermunicipal agreement between Otsego, Schoharie, and Montgomery County for Montgomery County to continue management of the 3 closed landfills. We approved that. Jordan was in and gave his report. He's applied for invasive species grants of 30,000, talked about the streams, they planted over 5,000 trees, have been planted on 5 acres for a buffer, and a whole list of things. So in the minutes, Alan from Treasurer and Andrew and Real Property and Hank Checker were in, we had a lengthy discussion about PACE financing, what our consideration, reasonable efforts to collect the funds, they had concerns about how to enter into the agreement with EIC, how to proceed with the property foreclosures, our monthly payments possible. I'll talk to the treasurers and Real Property and other counties that have already done this, and there was quite a lengthy discussion, and they are looking into the questions and answers. Karen gave a solid waste report. The month of April, we collected 362 tons of recyclables, and that month it cost us $87.70 a ton to get rid of them, I guess. Gave an update on regarding the solid waste management plan, only there were some changes made. I need to pull that resolution because there's some wording that needs to be changed. It's 193. I'm just going for the forward.
Probably sitting next to him.
I don't like nothing, that's why he's sitting next to me. Where was I? Lost my train of thought. Karen reported that Tammy Harris is working on a DEC septic replacement program grant that is sending out the flyers to residents of Goodyear Lake. A few weeks, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I had a person concerned about the southern transfer station that where they dumped the garbage to put in the trucks, that there was a big hole in the concrete floor. And the person was worried about ground contamination, so I did take a trip to Oneonta, and what had happened was in the corner of the building where there was a drain that went down to the pit, holding stuff, it had been dug out, and it was about the size of a pickup truck now, that box where they were putting garbage in and then scooping it out.
They still are.
Huh?
I was just down the other day, they still are.
They haven't fixed it yet.
Well, they're still scooping, putting the garbage in there and then scooping it out.
Well, and the meeting the other day, they told us that they were going to fix that. They tried to blame it on building services, but a drain that was going to that pit could only been 12 inches, and now it's a pretty good sized drain. So we're gonna keep after them to get that fixed. There was damage to the tarp cover that comes over the trucks that OSHA had been nailing the county to fix. Casella had a new excavator operator which damaged it again, so we're after them to fix that, and also some wiring issues. So
Is that a PESH citation?
yes, the garbage, it could be, I would think.
No.
OSHA.
Has it been issued? No, it'd be PESH if it's.
I don't think it's been issued, I don't remember that time we fixed it, but they were after us when it was broke before, that they wanted to fix it, we fixed it, but
So if it's an issued citation, we have a time limit, that's what I'm asking.
we haven't seen any issues, have we?
I'm sorry, what was that?
We haven't seen anything about the ground thing of any, what did you say it was?
We don't have an issued citation from Department of Labor, do we?
I have not even seen a report from OSHA that you mentioned. I don't, unless it's going to Doug Zerke, I haven't had any
Well,
violations directly.
it'd be PESH, Department of Labor, not OSHA.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
We're still running into some issues in the town of Cherry Valley with contaminated recyclables, we're working on that. And we meet Monday, June 13th at 9 o'clock in the Meadows.
That's
Wednesday.
Wednesday, I'm sorry, June 13th, Wednesday. I didn't cross off the Monday part.
Any questions for the chair? Hey, how's, I have one. the recycling up at the county, or up at the transfer station, they're getting charged for that, has anything changed with that? Is that those prices continuing to go up or down, or?
June 1st, we started charging for recyclables from commercial haulers at $55 a ton, or .025, $2.75 per pound for those that come in with less than a ton. Yes, we did.
Right. Is that changing at all? I mean, how often does that price fluctuate?
The price fluctuates monthly. So right now, I know we're paying more to get rid of it than we're charging, but we're waiting to see what happens at the end of the month.
This is not normal fluctuation that we see, right?
Correct.
This is some real difference.
But I had a thought, and maybe this has already been discussed, but, you know, we have a company locally that uses glass, required glass. Is there any kind of a,
I'm in touch with Cynthia.
maybe we can separate the glass out and
Well,
source that locally?
She's not willing, right now, she's not looking for, as we know it, glass from recycling. She is using actually the glass from computers, and that is what they're using for the road program, where they integrate it into the highway walkways and stuff. She did say to me if the county's willing to put in a glass crusher, she can't keep up with the amount that she has already. So I called her back, I haven't heard back from her, but yes, I am in touch with her, but that kind of glass that we're collecting is not something she needs right now. And so there's a possibility we do our own crushing and then try to market it.
Our glass is too sharp, isn't it? Isn't there something that's?
The color, the consistency and the color they can't control, so that was my understanding of the process. And they have more than enough that they need right now, and they can't keep up with the demand of the other material. So their focus right now, they have this big contract in California to do all this road paving using their glass that they use from the CRT TVs.
It's pretty ironic, paving roads with broken glass.
Dan, did you have a question?
Wasn't there this discussion at the meeting about like kind of adjusting the price for recyclables based on the yellow book, based on industry price?
Based on
The yellow book.
and the market, the pink, I think they call them the pink or the yellow
Yellow
sheets
sheet,
that come
yeah.
out monthly. Yeah, there is, but I hate changing that every second, because the hauler's gonna come across and it's one
just
day it's
gonna,
this, one day it's that, so.
I think it'd be better just to wait it out. I mean, part of it, it's frustrating because, like, the more you read about it nationally, it seems like every major metropolitan area in the country wasn't paying attention to WTO proceedings, which is the main vehicle that China was using to discuss the changes in their recycling policy.
And from my understanding, a lot of it is moving to Asia, and so it might improve. I don't know. Our effort internally that we can do locally is remote cleaning.
Oh, yeah.
And we've tried to work with OCCA to get the word out. We've done some radio promotions. We're doing some, clean your recyclables. And if not, we're not gonna pick them up. And we've also addressed a few major businesses locally that have not been very adamant about cleaning their material as well. So we're trying to pinpoint it locally to just try to improve our quality. We have been in touch with Delaware County to see if they'll take a percentage of our material. And
They're
again,
not charging anything for their recycling,
Delaware County?
zero, free.
Right, well, it's included in their taxes. The whole operation's included in their taxes. But she has a MRF over there, a manufacturing recycling plant, that only operates 3 days a week, and she collects half of what we collect. So we're trying to work with her to take some of our material, and again, it depends on the quality. Now Madison County went up there and they separate the paper from their glass and tins right now, and they're marketing their paper to Solvay in Syracuse. So again, those that are marketing domestically have a better position right now than us who have been depending on our vendor to market it, which has mostly been into China.
3 weeks ago when I was down there, Casellas told me that they had to kick Brooks's out because the recyclables that they were bringing were barbecue and grease and oil and everything else. So, I mean, that ruins the whole thing.
Yeah.
And they've been addressed.
Thank you. Anything else? Admin, Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Many of the things that we had admin you've already heard today, but I will hit the ones that are going through resolution and other discussions that came up during the meeting that are of interest to the entire board and bear further discussion. We are changing the residency requirement for a corrections officer. Penny Gentile presented that to us. Also alerted us to the fact that the M&C manual will be updated due to changes made in the CSEA general contract. Also, just to touch back on the salary study, all of the data is collected, and they hope to work with the PRGS committee in terms of getting that out to the rest of the board in a workable form. The Department of Health was the, oh, sorry, that wasn't the Department. Yes, it was the Department of Health. Resolution 191, grant award with Health Research, Inc. for the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Contract to run through July of this year through June of next year. Sheriff Rich Devlin, Resolution 192, to create, fund, and fill the school resource officer in conjunction with Northern Catskill BOCES. That is fully reimbursable with BOCES. We also talked about purchasing and contracting for the emergency warning equipment on the patrol vehicles and vehicle lettering on the jail van. Resolution number 180, Alan Ruffles presented the loan figures from Community Bank. This is regarding what Representative Frazier had mentioned, the $1 million. Was it you? Was it whoever? It's already been talked about today, but we did see those figures, $1 million at 2.9% for a 3-year payback. Also discussing safety and security with regard to the staff at the jail due to the CAFO, which is an ongoing discussion that we need to get more information before the sheriff is willing to make a commitment on where to go with staff in that regard. That led to a big discussion on capital projects, jail, 242 Main, highway building, and fire training center, which have all also been mentioned multiple times today. So what I really do think we will be moving forward on some sort of a task force to find our way into those projects and come up with the best way to approach each one of those very large projects. Resolution number 184 is the trolley extended route. Also want to mention the contract with the MXI Environmental Services, because I do want to mention Household Hazardous Waste Day, and the dates for that are September 7th and 8th, which is a really great opportunity for people to get rid of stuff that really needs to be gotten rid of. Bears repeating. Highway Superintendent Bill Mason, Rich Brimmer came in, and one of the things that we discussed and does need to be further looked at was the filling of vacant funded positions when the vacancy comes up really a long time before there's another couple meetings. So the request was, and the discussion centered around how to best streamline that process. It's a funded position, vacated, and there's a really long time before the parent committee meets again. Is there a way to address the issue maybe by having the chair of the committees or the chair of the board say, or both, was it both? Thank you, Gary. So we wanted, and what we decided was we would consult with the attorney and personnel and come up with a way to implement this strategy across all departments, even though it was the highway department that was asking for the expedited process. We had Hank Schecker come in from Real Property and talked about different plans that he has for repositioning Real Property to possibly become more involved in shared services with different, with the tax bills being moved into real property, potentially away from IT, and how the best way to hire a position that he's going to have that's coming vacant. So we did talk about that. Also, that we agreed that towns who do not organize their own tax grievance days should be fined $1,000 rather than $500. So if your town complains, that means that they didn't do it. Anyway, the good news is that the sales tax revenue is reported up 8.55% over 2017. Moving chronologically through our day, the next thing was Resolution 191 before you today, creating the senior caseworker for DSS. We also, I am very happy to tell you, Resolution 190, the Greater Mohawk Valley Land Bank is taking 20 Lake Street, so it's our first Otsego County property to go into the land bank, and it's been a long time coming, so I have a land bank meeting tomorrow, so I'll tell them how we did on passing that resolution. I endorse you to pass it. It'll be in good hands with the land bank.
The sooner the better, than we'll have to mow the grass.
So June 28th, Alan Ruffles informed us that at 10 a.m. on June 28th there is going to be a meeting discussing telemedicine with Allied Health and UCM. So if you're interested in learning more about that, it's open to everyone, 10 a.m.
What time?
10 a.m. June 28th, and I think it's in this room. Not positive. You can check with Carol. We also, Resolution 194, closing out year-end transfers for 2017. So now 2017 is fiscally closed. And also, we approved 2018 budget transfers. Another thing that came up, and we will be having to address this, Representative Kotnick brought this up, the county building parking lot and the Hall of Fame weekend. So it was discussed. We have to decide at some point what we want to do with it. With the discussion, Gary, would you like to talk about that for a brief moment, or?
Well, it's something I suggested last year, and apparently it was too late. We have a number of parking lots, two of which have, a single access in and out. And on induction weekend, parking spaces are a very, very valuable commodity. And I was thinking that if we could man those two parking lots, and I'm thinking of the one right out here, and then the one right outside, just to the right of the front door, the smaller one, and charge $20 a car. I've talked to Ellen about this, and the only consideration that we really need to be aware of is that the money that's collected needs to be given not just to any charity, but to an organization within the county. And so there are plenty of departments who can use the extra money for things that are not in their budget, odds and ends and so forth. And I'm willing to head that up. Last year I talked to Doug Zerkes, and he was very happy to help out with barriers and cones and stuff. And so that's where we are. Just need approval, and since I guess we haven't done anything like this before, we don't really know how to approve it, but or who approves it. But I'm just going to lay it out there and see what happens.
So did you check on the liability of it? Well, it would be any different than somebody breaking in it?
It's no different than any other day. I mean, if people parked in that lot when we weren't here, it's the same.
Which they do.
Which I'm
But
sure
when
they
they
do.
They do
pay
during induction,
us
they
for
park,
it,
these lots are full.
aren't we assuming some kind of responsibility?
We're not assuming any more responsibility than we already have.
I just-
Under the law, you're even liable for people who are trespassers,
I
so.
forgot. Thank you. Alan.
So charging money doesn't change our
Right,
liability
because we would be
status.
anyway. Okay.
I believe it would have to go through Public Works, correct?
I would think, yeah, in public, I don't know, you weren't at Public Works, but it was briefly discussed at Public Works, wasn't it?
Because when we had, it was brought up in admin, when we had a religious organization wanted to,
Right, went through Public
or
Works.
through public
But
works.
this is the county, it's not an outside organization, it's the county doing it for itself, not an
But-
outside.
I'd make a
Well-
motion from the floor right now, if that's permissible.
Well, I think I would like to discuss it more in a
I think
committee.
it's a public parking lot, I think people should be able to use it.
Because there is gonna be a certain amount of both sides having a comment, and I do think, I'm perfectly willing for it to go through admin. And and I would ask that anyone who had feelings about this one way or the other would let me know them, or email the committee, or let us know so that when we're going forward with it. And I also do see that it could go through Public Works, because that's.
Public Works
they're-
and then admin would be
Sure,
fine.
we'd get there
Yeah.
anyway. So, yeah, that
Sure,
would
it's all-
be a pathway that we could do this,
But
okay?
you have time.
Yeah.
Andrew?
I mean, personally, this came up before, and I personally would like to see it move forward. I think there's a huge, opportunity, you know, to help DSS or, you know, our senior services. There's a lot of our departments are even taking charitable contributions, and I think a lot of people in the community don't even realize they can support the county in different ways. And this is an opportunity for us to do what every other person here in the village is already doing. And I'm not everybody, but majority of people, if you come into town during induction weekend on Chestnut Street, and all the outerlying streets, if they have property, and I mean, I have my own rentals, and I've never done it myself, but you know, a lot of people that have room to park are parking cars, and you pay a registration fee here in Cooperstown, you know, with the village, and you park cars in your yards, and people are charging $40-50. And the one thing about this year and the next couple of years moving forward is that the Hall of Fame is projecting significant numbers. In fact, I'm on the Cooperstown Chamber Board, and we already are arranging an outerlying parking kind of partnership,
service.
yeah, that the Hall of Fame is a part of, because parking will be, this is the first of the next couple of years where parking is really gonna be, you know, a big issue. And so and I understand what Keith's saying about a public parking lot, but the people parking here are not tax-paying residents. They are not from Otsego County. They're visitors coming in for induction. So, you know, this is an opportunity for the county to leverage an asset and generate some revenue to help with actual social services needs here with our residents.
Okay,
I got just one minute.
okay, because we will be pounding
I
this all out
think
again.
you also need to look at the safety issue of, you may wanna check with emergency services. Maybe they need those parking lots for staging to get fire trucks out of this village, or ambulances,
Yeah.
one way or the other. I mean, that's space that the county, I mean, if they have to get outside of the village with fire trucks, it's a perfect spot to.
They're not using it though.
Well, they're not using, I mean, but
It's
you're not
full
talking.
of cars every year. But
It's
we
bigger.
talked, we talked about that last year, we talked about that little lot next to the annex, and I thought maybe using that too, but we decided not to because emergency services is set up right next to it and might need to use that, so.
I think emergency services already uses it.
Yeah,
Fire department.
yeah, so that would not be it.
So we'll make sure that we're reaching out and
Right.
having these
Yeah.
conversations
Oh, yeah.
before
Yeah,
we
I'd be glad
bring
to
this
talk
to a
to them.
resolution.
There's just one other comment. I mean, I think the main idea about this was relying on us, like, as volunteers too. I mean, that, you know, so I mean, I would be more than willing to volunteer. So hopefully other people would do it as well.
And he says that DSS can provide a number of volunteers as well to help out.
Great. So I just wanted to make sure we had
$50.
that beginning, so well, more to come on that. Next here,
Shuttle them in.
I would just like it to bring it to everyone's attention that the Board of Ethics vacancy, we did discuss it at admin, and it's resolution 187 deals with that vacancy, which will no longer be after today if that resolution passes. Our next meeting is June 25th at 9:30 a.m. And I just would like to say now at June 25th at 9 a.m. will be the first budget meeting. So Alan and I got together and decided June 26th would be our first budget meeting, and budget committee is all pretty much the same as admin, so we should all just be there and ready to go at 9:30. Does anyone have any further discussion or any questions?
Just two resolutions that you mentioned, one being 190.
Yeah.
That needs to be pulled because that requires a 2/3 vote.
Oh, okay. Oh, so we'll make sure
Okay,
that
so
we,
vote on that separately.
thanks.
And there was 187, is that the Board of Ethics plan? I think I'd like to pull that just so if there's an opportunity for discussion, if anybody wants to mention that. We'll discuss that.
Great.
Just, can you say again the budget meeting, because June 26th we had IGA.
25th.
June 25th,
Okay, and the other questions for the chair?
I just have a question, I probably should have asked public safety, but it was brought up in admin. The school resource officer position, when you said it is fully funded, does that include benefits?
Yes,
And is it funded for an entire year because schools are closed in the summer?
it is funded through BOCES' entire school year. So that,
That's
I guess
different
that
though,
would
right?
be,
Or the summer and the,
They're
They're not
paying
open?
full-time. BOCES has money in their budget to fund this for a year. Between the training and
Yeah.
the training of the officer that is required annually, and the training of other people administratively that he or she will be doing.
and who's doing the training, BOCES?
No.
No.
Where are they being trained?
No, the resource officer will be trained at wherever they are trained.
Through the sheriff's
Training.
So we've had school resource officers before and they have a
No,
training
it's not
program
in
there?
county, it's not in county, is my
No,
understanding. It's not here.
Right, there is a,
They will be going away for training,
Okay,
they come back, they will be training, that person will be training other administrative staff and counselors.
train the trainer.
And so that 2-month lapse will be when the annual training and stuff like that happens.
Okay.
there's an actual training for resources.
There is
Well, I
money
just was
in
concerned that we were
both,
conducting without prior history, but they're going out for it.
Correct.
BOCES' budget this coming year has that position fully funded to reimburse us. They will be seeking grant money to help defray that cost, but that's, if they get grant money, that would come to us first.
And are we prepared to do this for any school district that comes to us?
that's,
I would think at that level, if they're funding the thing, there's no reason not to. If there is no cost to the county, why would you not do that?
And also, the BOCES deals with most of the school districts, and this BOCES officer would be going, not 100% at the BOCES center, he'd be going out also to the school
yeah, they were
districts.
very open
They're
about
involved in
sharing
this,
it,
right.
him or her, with
So it's not
other
like
school
he's just
districts.
gonna be sitting at BOCES all day, every day, he's gonna be going to other districts in the BOCES at times.
Then our part of the county is a different BOCES, so they won't be going to some of the schools in this county that.
Correct.
So they would do it if our BOCES went to them as well.
I would
Any other questions? Okay, that's, committee, special committees, negotiations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two of the contracts are being printed, the deputy sheriffs and the CSEA. And last month, I notified everyone we were at impasse. I do understand that a mediator has been assigned or chosen, and our attorney and their negotiator are working on dates to get everybody together.
So we had a date.
We have a potential date. It's not finalized on the 29th, so, but it has not been finalized. There were some objections to it. Right, so there were some objections. Yes. There was objections on their side, objections to that date. And we will be allowed a maximum of 3 meetings before there's a decision.
We have 3 what?
3 meetings with the mediator, my understanding, so. That's something
from law. I just didn't hear what you said.
Any questions?
If that's settled, all the units will be under contract, labor peace.
Good job, yeah.
That would be good. Good work. Any questions? Performance review and goal setting, Representative Krugman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You saw the almost completed results of the salary study last month. We're still working on using that as a kind of a baseline to focus our attention on where we're going. I think we're pretty much clear that our recommendation will include salary increase each year, plus a merit component. The yearly salary increase will either be CPI or cost of living. There's still a chance we might be talking about mirroring the CSDA contract. We're going to work with the treasurer to come up with a package to add to the budget before the end of the summer. Also talking about the M&C contribution rate, and I think there's some interest in having that as part of this whole package slowly raised to correspond with some of the other employees' rates. Got some work to do as we go forward, and our next meeting will not be tomorrow. I'm sorry, that's my fault. I got myself double booked. And right now we're looking at 1 o'clock on Tuesday, whatever date that is, next Tuesday. At 1 p.m.
Any questions? I'm not sure if it's particularly part of the policy review committee, or the performance review committee, but policy review that you've undertaken, you made an update on that?
Yeah, my activity in that area right now has been just basically reading policies and making notes. And I'll have actually more time during the summer to do that. My thought is to pick out maybe 3 policies to send out to admin beforehand, and then if we could get that on the agenda each month or every other month, because this is really kind of hard grinding work, you know.
Hasn't been done in a long time.
But it hasn't been done in a long time, it has to be done. So, and I'm sorry, I didn't even tell Meg about this. But for us to take a, because that's our job, one of the fundamental purposes of admin is policy. And maybe X number, maybe 3 policies to look at. Some of them will be able to be approved without any changes, maybe minor changes. And then there's some that we might have to dig into a little bit. So we'll talk about what the best way to do that is. We start with a couple in each month and go for as long as it takes. If you've ever, okay, really, how many of you opened up the CD with the policies on it and started reading it? Not many. There's a lot of them. It's a very long list.
It is. Thank you for
There's a
tackling
policy on everything, but, so it'll take us a while to do that. But if we're started, then that's
You
cool.
can squeeze them in like the beginning of admin, because we'll never do it if we wait until the end.
Oh, no, it's not something you want to do at the end of
Strategy
that.
that you might
For
want to
everyone to
plan
look at them
for.
ahead of time.
Oh, yeah, and everybody will have the chance to look at it beforehand.
Right.
So, if everybody said, no problem with that one, boom, we're on to the next one.
So we'll figure out a way to
Yeah.
deal with it, yeah.
Great, thank you. This is the special committees, informal committees.
We, strategic planning, we didn't have quorum, but we just were following up on, kind of our discussion at our last meeting, which was, we had met with Doug and Bill, to start kind of collecting a little bit more, of the details related to the strategic plan and try to take kind of those high points in the strategic plan and make it more into a, kind of a more working document, like a work plan. So that's basically, we have a document, that's just an initial draft that was emailed to strategic planning and to Pete with Public Works and to Bill and Doug. And it's basically like just a simple chart that takes elements of the strategic plan itself and input that Doug and Bill both shared. And really the next step, it's really almost like a committee work plan that's specific to those two departments. And really the next step is for Public Works, which Danny and I talked about this, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Pete, but really Public Works looking at that document with Bill and Doug and starting to refine it and kind of strengthen the document. Really, the idea would be that we would have these kind of work plans for all of our committees, which goes back to some of this kind of stability, kind of continuity issues that our committees and the board faces every 2 years especially. So if we can have these work plans by committee which tie to the departments and tie back to the strategic plan, it starts to create a good foundation that really we could all work on. And if we go out the door, whoever comes in has something to pick up in terms of knowing what our intentions were, what our priorities are. So that I think we have some good elements in development.
And the technology portion of your
Well, part of that is, I was talking to Michelle a little bit before Jody presented. I think right now we're looking at these work plans, kind of just trying to see if this gets traction, and then the technology piece we haven't really touched on because honestly with IDA the broadband element hasn't had any updates recently. You heard Jody kind of give that quick perspective about where they sent a letter, Southern Tier East has sent this letter now, but we actually haven't at the IDA meetings, just from my role with them, broadband has not been given a lot of attention. I think part of that is just it's not clear where the money is, and if Otsego County can even access some of the money. So that needs, as I said to Michelle, I need to get more information from Jody about what we can actually do. What can the county board and what can our specific committee move forward with in terms of more information or more investigation? How can we make more headway on this issue? So
Along those lines, Rob O'Brien and I met with AT&T officials earlier, just about a month ago, and they've got this large national contract for broadband and emergency services type stuff, and we're trying to piggyback on them, and they seem very interested. We're having some follow-up and getting on some of our emergency service towers, maybe get a little more cell service and broadband service through that large federal program that's involved now. And just last week I met with Congressman Faso, and he's on board with putting some pressure on that to maybe to come to fruition. So hopefully we'll make some movement there. Any other special committees, land bank perhaps? You're reported on the land bank already, anything else?
No, I had to skip their last meeting, so I wasn't there. Oh, but I was recently made their vice chair.
Congratulations. Skip a meeting.
One step away from president.
They were waiting for that.
I was really excited to find myself on
Did that happen
another
when
executive level.
When you missed the meeting?
No, he had actually did speak to me one sentence before the meeting. So Meg, how do you feel about this? So,
I just wanted to mention that Cornell Cooperative Extension for Otsego and Schoharie counties, Don has come in the past, and he obviously comes to some of our committees, but for those of you who know, he's talked about this Blue Sky project, which is with the Otsego County offices on Lake Road, Route 80 there. There's a kind of a parking lot that's not the most attractive, and then the Master Gardeners, which is a program out of Cornell Cooperative, is does demonstration gardens, and they do a lot of activities over there. It's a very kind of active program, and they have a ton of people that put in a ton of volunteer hours. So there's this Blue Sky kind of project that's a conceptual kind of garden of.
Set a date for a meeting. Mr. Satriano, I guess, was tied up with training. We're gonna be the 22nd at 2 o'clock. Friday, 22nd, 2 o'clock.
Here?
Be down at the Meadows.
And along those lines that we were talking about the task force or special committee, about 242 Main, and discussed with Ellen, if we keep the committee small, and I suggest Liz and Dan maybe, there wouldn't be a quorum of any committee, and you guys could act informally as a task force. Or what is the official title? Short-term committee?
And advisory.
Advisory.
Ad hoc committee.
Ad hoc advisory committee, yeah. Well, they can report back to the board, and say, and to the committees involved. So, there's no objections, I'll make that official as of now. Anyone else? Just before we adjourn, take a short adjournment. Does anybody else want to pull anything other than, already pulled is 177, 187, 193, and 190? Anyone else? 192? Anyone else? Okay, we'll take a quick break and come back. Need a motion to dispense with the reading of all resolutions?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Again, anyone wishing to remove anything else after discussion? Okay. Call for action on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. Roll call vote.
Frazier?
Aye.
Farwell?
Aye.
Clark? Aye. Stanley?
Aye.
Kennedy?
Aye.
Overacker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty?
Aye.
Wilbur?
Aye.
Gottnick?
Aye.
Martini?
Aye.
Lappin?
Aye.
Shannon?
Aye.
6,228 ayes, 0 noes, no abstentions. Resolution, consent agenda has passed. Okay. Start with 77.
Resolution 177, amending Resolution 147, 2018-0404, approving Superintendent of Highways to purchase automotive parts and equipment and approving invoices. Overacker, McCarty, Wilbur, Farwell, Lappin.
Second,
Second.
discussion.
I pulled that because at the last Public Works meeting, we voted to extend that to July 31st, 2018, and I believe in here it goes to the end of the year. That ran out in May. The idea for not going the whole year was to hopefully move things along the RFP and get going, because this has been going on for over a year now, and we don't seem to gain much ground. If we have to redo it again at the end of 2 months, we'll have to do it again, that's all.
So how do we want to change that wording? Is that in the first resolved paragraph?
I could suggest wording, Keith, if it's okay, the second resolved paragraph, the second line from the bottom, say shall be authorized, and then add the words to July 31, 2018.
That'd be fine. Whatever.
Could I ask how it went from July 31st at committee to December 31st here?
We don't know.
We don't know.
I don't know, that's
Apparently.
why I
It was
asked.
just, okay, there's no
And I don't
conscious
believe,
reason for that.
No, there
All
wasn't.
right, good.
is this something that should have went through admin?
It did go through that.
I don't, we didn't see it in the,
No?
This was not, this
I was
particular was not presented at
Oh,
admin.
I'm sorry.
And
The other one
That
was,
that
the
was
one
another
in
question, did it
renovation.
go through admin, and should it have gone through admin? I think it should have.
Yeah, it did not go through admin, and it should have, because it's going to be over $20,000.
Yes.
So, I guess the issue is if someone wants to object to the resolution because it didn't go through admin, then it would take 2/3 to consider it today. So you could do that if you wished. I mean, that would be a way to send it back to admin, or someone could just move to, refer this to admin and then bring it back at the next meeting.
well, the problem with that is, we're gonna be a month behind our bills, and we're gonna get penalized.
So if we pass this by 2/3 majority, you say then,
Can we,
Well, if nobody objects,
Right. I mean,
Nobody
if no one
objected, so-
objects, you can just go forward.
okay.
I would like it to reflect the date of July 31st, to only extend it for 2 more months. That would have to be part of the language that was in the resolution. I would not object to it as long as it was just amending resolution of 147 to go through the end of July.
That's what we're doing.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's all,
exactly.
that's all,
okay, so, we have a motion to amend the resolution to include the words as described by the council.
And I'll second that. Motion to amend.
Right, is that coming from you, Keith?
Yes.
Okay. Second,
Gary.
Gary.
Can somebody on that committee make
Can
that
I do
motion?
that motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, does that need to be roll call or spending money, so?
Yeah, 20,000, that'd be roll call, wouldn't it?
Roll call vote, and this is on the amendment of resolution 177.
Frazier,
Aye.
Barwa,
Aye.
Clark, Hamel,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Overecker,
Aye.
Bliss,
Aye.
Marietta,
Yes.
McCarty,
Yes.
Wilbur,
Aye.
Koenig,
Aye.
Martini, Lappin,
Aye.
Shannon.
Aye.
628 ayes, 0 noes. Amendment to 177 is passed. Now we will vote on 177 as amended.
Frazier, Barwell,
Aye.
Clark, Stammel,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Overecker,
Aye.
Bliss,
Aye.
Marietta,
Yes.
McCarty,
Aye.
Wilbur,
Aye.
Koenig,
Aye.
Martini,
Aye.
Lappin,
Aye.
Shannon.
aye.
Can you check the purchasing, find out what's going on?
Yes. 187.
Resolution 187, appointing member to Otsego County Ethics Board, David Bliss.
I just pulled that to thought if anybody had any comments or discussions. I know Representative Stammel had sent out an email with some questions, and I think you had those addressed, so if you want to comment on that at all.
Yeah, well, I heard back from Brett yesterday, we communicated a little bit. I mean, he told his side of the story, which differed from the other perspective that was shared with me last week. I mean, I'm satisfied with his responses. I told my plan to vote for him today if this moves forward, so I'm satisfied. I don't know if other folks had an opportunity to speak with him or not.
I did. I don't know if anyone else did. Okay, so,
Can I have a question? Can
I'm
we
sorry.
ever, I don't know
Oh,
I don't know, is there some way where we could meet these people after, I mean, I don't say I'm not gonna object to it, but it would be nice if once the board was set up that, I don't even know what they look like, I mean, I just,
well, that's one of the reasons why we put the name out a couple of months ago, gave out his contact information so you could call and talk to him.
yeah, well,
Individual.
talking and looking at them, two different things.
Well, he was more than willing to meet with anybody that contacted him.
It's not exactly easy finding people for this board.
No, it's
Agreed,
not.
yeah.
I can tell you, it's very difficult. Most people, good candidates, and they say, nope, I'm not.
Click.
Yeah.
They're smart people.
Why they wanna be berated every month.
I think part of that is because they open themselves up to this type of discussion right here.
Correct.
What used to happen was, we make recommendations to a chairperson, that chairperson goes behind the scenes or whatever. You don't know if somebody turned you down, everything's, and then they make the recommendation. Putting it out to 14 board members does set it up for political stuff. And I don't think that it's the best way to do it. I mean, this is working out fine for Brett, but the potential was there for stuff to be said that's inaccurate or not truthful, and you're setting every candidate up for that. And going forward, you start having people take those shots, and you're gonna get everybody to say, no, I don't want any part of it, because you opened me up like that. And
But the
if
flip side of
anybody
that
make a
is you
shot-
get the criticism, as we had earlier today, that people, you know, were appointed behind closed doors because, for whatever reason, and, you know, better to get that out, I think, better to get that out of the way ahead of time than after the
Well-
fact. But your point is well taken.
Right, and this is memorialized, being filmed, anything that's
Right.
said that might not be true, might be a half truth, is out there for posterity.
Couldn't we and shouldn't we discuss candidates like this in executive
Yes.
session?
Certainly possible, yeah, that's probably,
And that would take some of that away.
some of that, correct.
Yeah.
Okay, are we ready for a roll call vote? No, this can be a voice vote, I'm sorry, yes, it can be. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, resolution 187 is passed.
Resolution 190, transferring premises of the Village of Richfield Springs to Greater Mohawk Valley Land Bank, Inc. Kennedy, Overacker, Fraser, Kotnick, Stamel, and McCarty.
This is land bank, so this was just pulled because it requires a 2/3 vote. We need a second? Any discussion? And roll call vote.
Fraser,
Aye.
Farwell,
Aye.
Clark, Stamel,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Overacker,
Aye.
Bliss,
Aye.
Marietta,
Yes.
McCarty,
Yes, thank you.
Wilbur,
I'll expect a check in the end.
Kotnick,
Aye.
Martini, Lappin,
Aye.
Shannon.
Aye.
Quick, does that take effect?
I'd say, as soon as they finish the attorneys going back.
The voting
No.
It's gonna be that, my eyes.
6,228
Can't call
ayes,
down.
0 noes, 0 abstentions, resolution 190 is passed.
It looks like internet's wonky
Yeah.
all over the country, so
Resolution 192, creating a position in Sheriff's Department, Deputy Sheriff, Kennedy, Overacker, Fraser, Kotnick, Stamel, and McCarty.
Second,
I'll second.
discussion?
I just pulled it because Bradley Street's the one to us.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call vote?
this is 191.
192. Fraser,
Aye.
Farwell,
Aye.
Clark,
Abstain?
Stamel,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Overacker,
Aye.
Bliss,
Aye.
Marietta,
Yes.
McCarty,
Aye.
Wilbur,
Aye.
Kotnick,
Aye.
Martini, Lappin,
Aye.
Shannon.
Aye. Bang that gavel.
How many,
Just one abstention.
yeah. 554 abstentions, 620, 6228 minus 554.
We'll do it the old fashioned.
She's doing the math.
Well, I was
gonna
going
check.
to. I don't know if a smartphone on me. See?
Oh, we had time to change
That's
our vote.
faster than the.
All right, 5,674 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 554 abstained, resolution 192 is passed.
Resolution 193, approving secra negative declaration for Otsego County Local Solid Waste Management Plan, McCarty, Kennedy, Kotnick, Lappin, Farwell.
Second,
Second.
discussion?
Karen asked me to pull this because you need to add the word approved, so approving seeker negative declaration and adopting Otsego County local solid waste local management plan.
What paragraph?
The title.
The title, approving needs to be changed, it needs to have adopt and adopt.
Oh, and adopt.
Approving seeker and adopting. Negative.
After negative declaration and adopt.
And adopting the solid waste management plan.
Nothing needs to change in the body, just the title.
Just the title.
Second the motion for amendment.
Second.
You okay with that?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, roll call vote on the amendment.
Frazier?
Aye.
Farwell?
Aye.
Clark? Stammel?
Aye.
Kennedy?
Aye.
Overriker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty?
Aye.
Wilbur?
Aye.
Kotnick?
Aye.
Martini?
Aye.
Lappin?
Aye.
Shannon?
Aye.
628 ayes, 0 noes. Resolution 193 has been amended. Now, to vote on 183 as amended? As,
Hold on 1 minute, so, I just need a minute to look at this then. So the resolve though does not include that language. So I would need
Further amendment?
Yes. So if someone would like to propose adding a third resolve
So moved.
Second.
stating that,
Be it there, you know, it would be resolved that the County Board of Representatives has thoroughly reviewed the draft plan and accepted public comments therein. Therefore, be it resolved that the County Board of Representatives adopt the draft local solid waste management plan.
have we done all that, have we accepted?
We had, in SWEC, we had, Karen and Tammy had revised the draft solid waste management plan. They incorporated public comment, they submitted the revised draft back to SWEC, and SWEC approved it for adoption.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
I don't take shorthand, so whatever you just said, I don't have one single word.
It would just be resolved,
Put it in the short
Can you just
form.
email
Are you adding a new resolve, Danny?
Yeah,
I would say, so resolved that the Otsego County Board of Representatives, having reviewed the proposed Otsego County Local Solid Waste Management Plan, hereby adopt said plan.
Yeah,
And
that
that's-
sounds good.
Right.
That sounds good to me. 'Cause it indicates that we did due diligence by accepting public comments.
I can help you with.
So you do another round of vote?
these.
Ellen, are these resolutions, are they sent back to the department head once they're made or not?
Sometimes they are and sometimes they aren't. I mean, it truly depends on when they get them to me. If they get them to me at the last minute, I'm lucky I've got them done by Friday morning. So, and unfortunately what happened this time was Karen was out
Right.
because her mom died. So she usually goes over them all, but we didn't have that opportunity.
So motion 193B,
So moved.
second,
Second.
roll call vote.
Frazier,
Aye.
Farwell,
Aye.
Clark. Stammel.
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Overbacker,
Aye.
Bliss,
Aye.
Marietta,
Yes.
McCarty,
Aye.
Wilbur,
Aye.
Koenig,
Aye.
Martini,
Aye.
Lappin,
Aye.
Shannon.
Aye.
6,228 ayes, 0 noes, 193 is passed, the amendment, 193B is passed. Now the vote as amended.
Frazier,
Aye.
Farwell,
Aye.
Clark. Stammel.
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Overbacker,
Aye.
Bliss,
Aye.
Marietta,
Yes.
McCarty,
Aye.
Wilbur,
Aye.
Koenig,
Aye.
Martini,
Aye.
Lappin,
Aye.
Shannon.
Aye.
6,228 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and resolution 193 passed. That's everything we pulled, correct? Now we're just down to here, correct? If there are no objections, local law E of 2018 will be acted upon as presented. Motion?
So moved. Second.
Second, to be held over for public hearing on 7/5/18 at 10 o'clock, 10 a.m. Which brings me to our next point, just to make sure everybody's aware, our next meeting is Wednesday, the 4th of July, so we will not meet that day, we'll be meeting on Thursday, the 5th, at 10 a.m.
Like tonight, I really know that I'm gonna be out of the country. I'll be going to Japan, because my wife and I got married, and she needs to meet my extended family, so. I apologize.
Well, have a great trip, yes, sir.
I'll be out of town the 5th.
Okay,
I'll be here.
as far as I know, I will be.
Sounds like only down to
Anybody-
two so far.
Else have any objections to that date for a meeting?
And it's at the same time?
Same time. Okay, further business? Motion to be adjourned?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.